with the clock, and it's those and with the clock, and it's and clock, similar to clock with the clock.
So what we're gonna do, normally we just do the whole week from 2010, but we're just doing St. Patrick's Day because it was crazy. So I just wanted to ask you, you were behind the scenes. Now I already asked you this, you weren't on air that day. What were you doing? Were you trying to control the crowd? What was your job?
So interestingly enough, I actually wasn't supposed to be on site that day. So I was driving into the studio to man the phones, assist with audio, and anything else that the guys would need from studio. I think they refer to her as Voldemort at this point, the former executive producer, called me literally as I was driving into the station and said, "Hey, I am terribly sick. I'm not gonna be able to make it to the site, forego going to the studio and head over to the remote. And I'm gonna have you're gonna take control that day." And I was like, okay. I had done that a few times before, but never flying solo. And so I pivoted.
Just out of nowhere. You were going to the station, all of a sudden you went to the remote. This is amazing. Okay.
I think I was in pajama pants at some point. Like I was expecting, I didn't have any makeup on. In my head, I thought, great, the guys aren't in the studio today. I'm going to slum it. I'll go take care of whatever's, in studio, and I'll head back home. I mean, jokes on me ultimately. But so I headed over to the site. And that day I was really kind of manned with, lining up we had a few phoners that day, so a few guests that were calling in. So I was in charge of doing like the pre-screen that morning, getting them, whoever the guests, I don't even remember who the guests were that day, but whoever they were, making sure the audio was clean, kind of preparing them to go live with Kevin and Bean. Or Kevin and Ralph. Bean was not, he didn't call in that day, I don't think. He typically takes St. Patrick's Day off. I don't think he was on air that day.
Yeah, so, they announced that he was going to be on vacation because he hates fun. Yeah, so it was Kevin and Ralph. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So, that's what I was mainly going to be managing, and also managing the guys, making sure they weren't getting too rowdy, assisting with like anything related to kind of crowd control. So really, yes, like behind the scenes, that was my duties for that day. And I think we all know how, that show ended up. So
that's not your fault. You cannot control a Kevin and Bean crowd. The thing was, I listened to the show twice because it was so good. And I'm like, wait, I think that's Sarah yelling at people. I'm like, I wonder if her job is to try to control these nuts. So that's not your fault.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I remember it was at the Dublin, right? In downtown?
Casey's, right?
Oh, Casey's, that's right. Okay. And typically for remotes, they set a decent amount of space between where the guys are sitting and the crowd so that you don't get like that overflow of crowd noise. And because Casey's was so small and like packed in, and they were trying to allow as many people as possible, the crowd was literally up against the table where the guys were sitting. So mics were picking up everything. And as the show progressed, as we all know, it just got sloppier and sloppier. And, it was hard to manage the crowd expectations. The guys were just, the wheels were off by the third hour. They were trying to force me to drink from like 6 in the morning. And I was like, guys, someone's got to keep this together. King of Mexico was drunk by everyone was just like balls to the wall kind of in it that day. And so managing the crowd was really difficult because I was getting calls from the engineers back at the station saying like, I cannot hear what the guys are saying. I can't hear anything. We got to push the crowd back. So, yes, that was probably me yelling at some point.
Yeah, one of the guests was the creator and director of the movie Leprechaun.
That's right.
Oh, that's
so he called in because they were talking about it. They did a video vault, and he called in, and that's something that the boss was mad about. They even replayed that, and they said you could barely hear the director, you could hear the crowd. So that's why they were right up against you guys.
It's interesting because, Weatherby typically didn't really listen to the show. He kind of just let us do our own thing. And so that morning, for whatever reason, I think he was was driving into the station and turned us on, and he caught the last maybe hour and a half. And that's what really got us in trouble, because I mean, we all know the infamous reggaeton horn. We know getting crazier and crazier as the show continued.
That's right. Does this sound familiar, Sarah?
Stop playing that!
It haunts me to this day, guys.
Me too. Okay, now that brings up Omar. Did you see any of Omar's craziness?
Oh, of course. I tried stopping him at some point, and there's just no, when Omar gets in that zone, there's no stopping him. And it was hard, because for like the chaos of it all kind of became humorous at some point. At some point, I just had to throw my hands up and say, there's no stopping this. I might as well just laugh and enjoy. And so watching O get continuously more rowdy, and O is a professional to the nth degree, like, and he takes his engineering very seriously. So to see someone like O, who typically like is in studio and is all about the audio and the cleanliness of what's going on air, to see him just like not give an F, it was really kind of funny. Like, you couldn't help but laugh.
Well, the joke was they would always say, Omar, swing it from the chandelier. And then he would say, I'm back at the station. So this time, it really happened. That was the real Omar.
Yep, it was him. He was on site. And that's true. It was for the remotes, it was typically O and myself back in the studio. I would be manning phones, kind of assisting, again, like in studio with any of the audio that's coming in from the live. And then O was really kind of head engineer that day, connecting with the engineers that were typically on site. I can't remember what happened this time what happened into the circumstances that O was on site. But man, he was in rare form that day.
Were the bosses really that mad at you guys?
Oh yeah, there were multiple meetings. Yeah. And I wasn't privy to some of the higher up stuff. So whatever meetings I was involved in was like the trickle down effect. So there were multiple meetings. They were not happy with what went down that day. Like, any possible thing that could have gone wrong, with the exception of like someone getting arrested, like really went wrong that day.
Okay, tell you what, I've got a bunch of clips. Let's just kind of go through it and we'll see if that reminds you of anything. Okay, so Monday they announced the party.
We're going to announce our St. Patrick's Day party.
Yes.
And if this tells you anything, the name of it is Kevin and Bean's Vomit by Noon St. Patrick's Day party.
That's our goal. That's what we're shooting for.
We're just being honest this year.
Vomit by Noon.
Okay, so that's how they started out. So they were going for that. Okay, now let's go. This is when Omar starts going crazy.
Thanks for our hype man.
106.7.
Yeah. What up, K-Rock?
It is 7:52.
When did Randy Jackson start working for the Kevin and Bean show? I don't know, dog. That was a little pitchy. Dog.
Omar's our DJ down here at Casey's Irish Pub. Yeah, they turned off his microphone.
Oh, come on with that.
No, that's a good.
No more drinks for Omar.
That's a good idea.
No more drinks or mics. Those are his options. He's got a microphone or a cocktail. He's got one or the other.
No more mic.
Listening to these clips, it really kind of I can like see it in my head. So the guys were at the end of the bar with a table that was lined up, and O was kind of across the bar from them. He wasn't sitting directly next to them. And so the drunker Omar got, like, the louder he felt like he had to yell in order to let Kevin and Bean hear, or Kevin and Ralph, even though he had a mic in front of him. So he just got louder and louder and louder as the show went on.
Now, they turned his mic off, but how could he still play the reggaeton sound?
I want to say he had, and forgive me, a lot of the tech stuff has gone out of my head. It's like over 10 years now, but I want to say he had an audio board that was linked directly to on air, and then he had a live mic that was that you could hear in the bar, but also so he kind of had two audio routes that were coming in. So the reggaeton horn was off of his soundboard, which he could just hit a button all day long and it was playing.
Yeah. So even he did play all day long.
Yeah, it was still going out on air.
So this kind of sounds like you. Is this you?
It is the Kevin and Bean Vomit by Noon. Vomit by 10! St. Patrick's Day Party.
All right, Vomit by 10.
There's a woman with goals.
Was that you?
I couldn't tell. Maybe it could have been if I was trying to get them to say the right thing. But that also sounds like maybe like a drunk woman in the audience.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't you. Because Ralph said, oh, I talked to her and she doesn't have a job. So I don't think that's you. Because you had a job that day. You had the hardest job in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, they were doing a contest to give away tickets to Kings of Leon. So this was pretty funny. I guess everybody was already drunk.
All right, this is Fernando. Fernando, where are you from?
From East LA.
East LA.
East Los.
All right, what song are you going to be singing?
I'm going to be singing Sex on Fire.
Sex on Fire.
Another King song. Great.
Here's Fernando.
I just forgot the lyrics.
Simon Cowell is very disappointed in you right now.
Do you remember the lyrics "Sex on Fire"? Because they're in the song.
I love that. He forgot the lyrics to the song Sex on Fire.
I totally forgot that we did this. Part of what I did that day, Dave sent me out with a mic and he was like, go find out some people in the audience that can sing Kings of Leon songs. And it was so loud in there. And people were like already drunk by 7 a.m. And so I was walking through the crowd trying to figure out if anyone knew lyrics to any Kings of Leon song. And I truthfully, they could have been singing the ABCs to me. I could not hear a thing of what they were saying back to me as I was screening the audience to see who knew Kings of Leon songs.
Okay, because I kept hearing you in the background. Your voice is like really good that way. It cuts through stuff. I'm like, that's Sarah. So yeah, okay, that explains a lot.
That's the loudest you can me.
No, I love it. Your voice is very good that way. So like I said, they had the guy that created the movie Leprechaun on. This just cracks me up. This is from Leprechaun in the Hood.
Coming from the land of the Irish Spring. Yeah. It's the place where I learned my faith. From the Emerald Isle to your place in the hood. I'm the man of green, come to do no good. Left in the hood, come to do no good. Left in the hood, come to do no good.
Left in the Hood, come to do no good. So that was pretty funny. But that guy, the director, called in. So that must be one guy you set up, right?
Yes. And I remember it was really hard to hear him to begin with. And then again, it was so loud in the bar. I think it was just so close and so confined. Typically the remotes are either outside or like on a patio. So it's not like directly inside or if it's indoors, like I said, there's distance. So it was just really hard to hear anybody. I don't think I heard more than 2 words from him as I was pre-screening him.
Yeah, later on, they played one of the clips of talking to the director. And it's like you can hear the people in the bar as much as the director. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we go on, Omar's going more and more crazy.
All right, now we're going to make some phone calls. Little Guinness chaser. We're going to make some phone calls. There are people here who are... All right, Omar.
Easy with the reggaeton.
There are people here who didn't think ahead. I'm going to punch you right in the head.
For Omar.
So they tried to cut him off, but nope. Okay, so now Kevin's getting a little bit madder.
Hang on a second, Ralph. Do you mind?
No, what are you doing?
Shut the F up, Omar!
You are yelling things without a microphone.
Okay, now they talk about that Omar jumped behind the bar and got thrown out. So this was Kevin's response, which I love.
Omar decided that he didn't want to wait to be served. So he walked around behind the bar and started helping himself.
Self-serve.
Omar.
I see.
So not only was he pouring his own drink, he was
God.
taking orders from people and starting to make their drinks.
Oh, Jesus.
Right? So
helping him out, dude.
So the security, 2 giant security guards go rushing back there and they grab him. And they come by me and they look at me like, he works for you guys, what should we do? And I said, what do you normally do? And they said, throw him out. And I was like, throw him out? Ralph bought a horse.
Oh. Well, let's just go to that one.
Ralph bought a horse.
Yeah. Somehow I'm a I'm a partial owner in a racehorse now.
And we're not sure how that happened or who it was that was talking to him about it.
It happened yesterday at some point.
But he got a congratulations email. We're not sure what he owes.
Okay, so two things. Did you see Omar go behind the bar?
He served me a shot. He and I took shots together. He crawled behind the bar. At this point, it was like, this was the last like maybe 10, 15 minutes of the show. And like I said, the guys had been trying to get me to drink the entire morning. I refused up until maybe like 8:45 or 9:45, 9:50, right before the show ends at 10. Oh. And so, climbed over he kept asking, he and I were standing right next to one another at the bar, and he kept trying to signal the bartender. Of course, they're assisting the patrons. And said, forget this. He's like, Cleo, you want a drink? Let's do this. He literally hopped behind the bar. He poured 2 shots for himself and myself. And then he started literally like taking orders from people. So, and I also witnessed Kevin say, get him out of here. Like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, I saw it all go down.
Okay, I love that story. So he got kicked out, but he got back in, right?
He did. He made his way back in. I think partially too, because part of what security is half hired security for the day, but it's also behind the scenes, what the people who don't get a lot of credit is the Krock promotions crew. They are incredible at what they do. And more often than not, they are manning the door, making sure anyone who enters was a guest that won tickets. They're ensuring that, nothing crazy is happening in front of the entrance. So I suspect came back around, was talking to the promotions guys and was like, I'm coming back in. And like, they're not going to say anything to Omar. So I think that's probably how he snuck his way back in.
Okay, so that's basically the day. I recommend anyone listening, go to the last showbiz beat of that day. We love it when it goes off the rails. The last showbiz beat is great always. So it's amazing. Okay, so now here's the epilogue. So the next day, a certain someone didn't show up to work. Do you remember that? Beer mug.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Oh, I completely forgot about that. But I don't think it was related to the broadcast that morning. I think he was doing his own thing the night before.
No, not really. Because the next day they called Beer Mug.
All of a sudden snuck up on me was, it's 7:20 and...
Last night or this morning?
This morning.
Okay.
The AM.
The AM.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And I'm laying in a bush in a neighborhood in Chatsworth.
No!
Laying in a bush in a neighborhood in Chatsworth, California.
Now wait.
I do remember. I remember calling him. I was the one that was trying to call him to figure out where he was. But I didn't think he was at the broadcast the day before.
Maybe he didn't go, but they said afterwards he was partying. So maybe he went there and partied and then woke up in a bush.
That makes sense, because we continued after the show ended. And actually, so I remember that like the promotions guys had to drive me back to the station with King of Mexico, because at that point, both of us were way too gone to drive. And then they were kind enough to drive me back down into downtown LA. Like, I crashed at the station, took a nap. I think Dave and I went to some event or some screening or something. And then the promotions guys drove us back to the bar at the end of the day so that we could go get our cars. But we did stick around much longer after the broadcast. So Muggs probably met up with us at some point after the broadcast.
Yeah, I remember them saying something about that, like Muggs came later and then he kept partying. And so I love that. That was a legendary thing. They would talk about Muggs waking up in a bush for years. Okay, I think this is a year later. I went and I looked at the podcast or the show from that day, and they were kind of recapping all the trouble that happened. So let's see what the bosses thought about St. Patrick's Day, Omar craziness.
We have an evil boss, and our evil boss hates us, and he hates fun. And so last year's show convinced him that we should never do another live show again as long as we live.
Now, is that true? Did you guys never do another live show?
Yeah, so I left the show shortly thereafter, actually, so I probably left in like May or April. Okay. And they did not do a live event again. I want to say it was like close to 3 or 4 years before they did a live again.
Okay, that's funny. Okay, so they talked more about their evil boss.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't remember the name of the movie, Evil Leprechaun 3 or something. It was. There was a Leprechaun movie, and it's about an evil one. And we talked to the guy who made the movie, and it's possible that our crowd mics were up a little loud.
Take some notes, and while I was still coherent.
Sure.
And so they did, and I came up with Leprechaun, and I said, no one's done it, and everybody knows Lucky Charms, so let's do a evil, funny Leprechaun.
So that's good, right? Okay, so Mr. Weatherby, evil boss who hates fun, you're suggesting that maybe he listened to this broadcast and didn't think that you guys were paying as much attention to the broadcasting details as you might have been?
How can he think that? That's ridiculous.
So that's like what you said. Apparently, he tuned into the last Showbiz beat.
Yeah.
And he heard the upset of craziness, the maximum craziness.
Yeah.
And then he came down on you guys.
Yeah, he came down hard, and that didn't happen very often with Weatherby.
Do you ever keep in touch with any of the old guys, like Weatherby or Kevin or Bean, or?
Occasionally with Kevin and Bean. Every now and then I think we're all at some connected via social media on one platform or another. So every once in a while I hear from them, or I'll hit them up.
Yeah, we heard you on the old B Team podcast.
Yeah.
We were double checking some of your old details. You were really good on that. That was a really interesting thing. Okay, just one more thing about the evil boss.
So why is the man coming down on us?
I don't know.
Why won't he let us have fun?
But we are broadcasting for Cinco de Mayo, though, right?
Never again, Bean.
But what about our 420 show? We're doing the 420 show, aren't we?
Never again.
So, till eternity?
So, well, not eternity, but I guess about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely for for Acoustic Christmas and Weenie Roast, those were the exceptions. But anything that was Kevin and Bean centric or just for the morning show, it didn't happen for a very long time after that.
Okay, that's too bad. But you guys did get back into the swing later, because they even did a Kevin in the Morning show remote, maybe a few months before the show went off the air.
I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, they went to the Slide Bar in Fullerton. That was when Allie and Jensen were on the show. So they eventually did something.
I got to say, even in studio, there was always something magic. There was a spice of magic when Kevin and Bean were together live, because for the majority of the time, Bean would be calling in, and to the average listener, you can't really hear, but there was an energy when the two of them were in the same room together. So the live events were always really fun.
The thing is, even though it may have went off the rails, it's legendary. Any Kevin and Bean fan will remember that show. So far from making the show look bad, it made the show like a party.
Yeah, I actually agree. I mean, it wasn't great for anyone who was listening for content that day, but if they were really interested in understanding what that Leprechaun movie was about, but for pure laugh and joy, it was one of the better ones.
As an event, yeah. But I mean, how much do you really need to know about the Leprechaun movies, please? Oh, wait.
And now, breaking news bulletin.
Now, I emailed a certain Bean Baxter today. I said, we're having a guest star, and I'm really nervous. So, Bean, he's so loving and kind. So this is what he said to me. So, how do I interview Sarah? I'm really nervous. Treat her like a person, you dummy. Where can this alleged podcast be found? I had no idea. Is it jankier than Jankytown? So I told him, yes, it's much jankier than any Jankytown. So thank you, Bean. He that bedside manner of his has not deteriorated at all. Okay, so that's basically the St. Patrick's Day. Just one quick thing. This is how great the show was. This also happened that same exact week.
This Kat Corbin, who also works at the radio station, is not as at home as she is in Austin.
Mm-hmm. Austin, Texas?
Hey, Kat.
So that crazy call also was the same week. So it's just classic upon classic.
That was fun time.
It was.
Those and with the clock, and it's clock, similar to clock with the clock.